Hello, everyone. I am Alicia Renee. I am the founder of The Confident Lily and the host of She Exudes Now Virtual Talk. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am super excited about getting back to these virtual talks. I miss them, and they are so encouraging to my soul. And so this actual session, this interview that we have today, is just an important interview for me. And I feel like it will be very encouraging to others, especially during this time of year. So we are talking about finding hope and blessings in everyday moments. And so this time of year, sometimes it can bring people down a little bit, especially if you've had some obstacles that you have gone through and you're just not really feeling very hopeful or optimistic, or you don't have a lot of joy and all of that holly jolly spirit that we would normally have for this time of year. But I'm hoping that through this conversation that you will be inspired and you will find some ways to find some of that hope in everyday moments. So I am going to bring to the stage my guest today, Danielle Boyd. Hello, Danielle. How are you?
Hi. Hi, Alicia.
How's it going?
It's going all right. How about yourself?
Good.
Good,
Going
good.
pretty well. Best as it
Yeah.
is gonna go for right now.
Yes,
So I'm thankful for
considering.
that.
Yeah.
Yes. So Danielle is the founder of Daily Becoming, and she is also a podcaster as well. And I'm going to let her introduce herself in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to ask her what she is exuding today. So I normally ask all my guests, and it's called She Exudes for a reason, because we want to just share what we are inspired by, what we're feeling, and sometimes what we hope to do. Um,
Alicia, did you patch that over to me? Is it my turn? I lost you for a second. You froze for a
yeah,
second.
yeah. I'm
Okay,
sorry. It sounds
okay.
like there's a
No,
little bit
it's
of a
fine.
delay.
It's fine.
What would
Um,
you say
I
you're exuding today?
I am exuding perseverance today. I am trying to push through a number of different things,
Hmm.
pushing through the next few weeks of school. I'm an educator for
Hmm.
myself and for my child. We all are struggling a little bit after this last holiday break, moving into the next holiday break. I'm also in school myself, so I'm pushing through this last week of classes and coursework and projects that I have due, and just trying to push through and be the best that I can
Hmm.
be for all of the hats that I wear.
Wow. In school, you're an educator as well. You've got children. So, yeah, you're just trying to get over the hump right now.
Yes,
Definitely
absolutely.
understand.
Yes.
Um, I think for me, I would say that I'm exuding not only hopefulness, but also perseverance. So
Yes.
I've shared with many that I recently experienced the loss of my significant other. It was so tragic. So, we're never prepared for loss, but that was
Never.
just something that was very sudden. So, just trying to push through with life. and find out what that looks like, even during the whole grieving process. I will say that I am hopeful, and I am carrying that hope. I am carrying my faith along with me. And while, there may not be much meaning in the why at this moment, I know that there is something to come, that things will be okay. So that is
Yes.
what I am exuding from head to toe: hopefulness and
Yes.
perseverance. All right. So let's just get into a little bit about you. I know that you are very much a person that wants to inspire women to,
Mm-hmm.
find the joy and in everyday moments, and also to not give up on hope, um,
Mm-hmm.
and to push themselves. With the whole daily becoming, I would think that that would mean that you need to work on becoming whatever God has for you to be on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
and, not get so disenchanted with the woes of life or the cares of life. So, can
Yeah.
you just kind of give us a little bit more background of who you are, what you do, and how you became so passionate about pushing women to become the best person?
Okay. Well, again, Alicia, I really appreciate you allowing me to join you here on your platform. And I do admire your strength and the perseverance that you're displaying at this time. And, we'll continue to keep you in my thoughts and prayers. And that your holiday season is still blessed beyond what you can even imagine, despite what you're going through. I am Danielle Boyd, and I am, first of all, a believer in Christ Jesus. I am a wife. I'm a mom to a 7-year-old, and I'm a girl mom. I am an educator of 18 years in the North Carolina public school system, still working every day. I also started coursework towards a potential terminal degree, and I am the owner operator of Daily Becoming, which is a what I would like to refer to as a boutique. It consists of a blog, email list community where I send out encouragement and tidbits and things of that nature, and a podcast. And more recently, there is an accessory component. So, just helping women to exude confidence from um, kind of a beauty standpoint. So, in terms of how I got started, um, with doing Daily Becoming actually started out as something else in 2020, just at the height of the pandemic. And for me, I found myself kind of feeling the strain and the rut of life and, wondering, was this it? Was this all that I, was called to? And obviously there had to be more. And I just have always been a fan of writing. I actually started blogging with my sisters back in, I believe it was 2018, and that kind of dissolved. But I wanted to continue. So started out on my own, and it turned into Affirm You, um, and wanted to legalize the business and get things in place, and realized that someone had already taken that name in some fashion and had to sit back and pivot. And that's how Daily Becoming came to be. Daily Becoming, actually, the first two initials are the first two initials of my first and last name, my first name and married last name. So it's very personal, because I do believe and feel that we're all on a journey to becoming who God created us to be. And I bring my background as an educator to this platform, because I feel like for me, it's less about me trying to help someone and more about me, because I'm not qualified to help. I don't have a background in counseling. I don't have a licensure in that. I'm, not a life coach, things of that nature. Um, I am licensed in education, of course, in various areas of that. So for me, it's more about um, coming alongside other women like myself and being transparent and being someone that they can relate to as they experience certain things in life, and letting them know, hey, you're not alone. I'm learning that lesson right now. I learned that lesson. This is what I took away from that. Maybe this is what I suggest, but sometimes I find that people are more willing to receive when they know that you're coming from a place of having been there, done that. So Daily Becoming for me is very much a passion in that I show up from a place of I am you, I see you, we are each other, and let's help each other along in this journey. It's definitely a community, and driven by my faith, and um, you know, I strive to encourage other women in on the platform.
Hmm. I love all of that. I love how you talked about you not necessarily having to be an expert in
Hmm.
certain areas, but that you walk through these life's experiences. And sometimes life experience is the best teacher.
True.
And so you're able to share those things with other women and just kind of bringing them along with you.
Yes.
And that's important too, because
Hmm.
we need a network. We can't all do it on our own. We need some sort of village. And
Right.
it's great when you can have a sisterhood of people that you trust, that you can just maybe talk to and vent, that
Yeah.
you can share information, get advice from, let your hair down, have some
Yes.
fun sometimes. And
Yes.
so, you need all that. If you're a mother, you need the support. Sometimes those kids are going to drive you crazy. Um,
Yeah.
and you need to know, how do I deal with this? The husband is not acting right,
Hmm.
family's not acting right. How do I deal with this? How do I push forward? And sometimes you don't want to know how to deal. You just want to have a good time with, your girlfriend. And
Exactly.
so I love all of that because I feel like there's a purpose for relationships,
Yeah.
and we need to share in whatever capacity that may be, bringing and uplifting people along with us on the journey, and
I
not
agree.
just, moving ahead at our own pace, but also
Right.
bringing people along for the ride with us.
Exactly. I agree with that also.
So awesome. And I love how you talked about it started with you.
Hmm.
I didn't know that your initials were a part of it. And it was just, what is Danielle doing to
Hmm.
continue to become what God
Yes.
has ordained for her? And how do I share that message with others? So
Exactly.
kudos to
Yes.
you.
Yes. Thank you.
Just
Thank
love
you.
that all the way around. Thank you. Hmm. So let's talk about hope. Um,
Hmm.
in your words, what would you say hope is, and what does it consist of? And how would one hang on to hope?
Well, I guess in my words, hope is faith, trust, and belief that there
Hmm.
is something greater and bigger. And while you may not be able to see that, of course, for me as a Christian, um, I know that Christ lives on the inside of my heart, that I can feel his presence in my life, but of course I cannot see, I can't see that. I can see the manifestation of his goodness and, around me and things that he, does in my life and for my family and friends and things of that nature. But my hope lies in the fact that he has always been faithful. He's always
Hmm.
been trustworthy, even in situations where I couldn't necessarily see his hand moving on the back end. Once I came through whatever the situation was, I realized he was there all the time. So hope for me is just a knowing and a belief and a trust and faith that everything is going to be all right. Everything's going to be okay.
Hmm.
I've experienced, we've all experienced a number of things, and some of us may be experiencing things right now that are unthinkable.
Hmm.
And it can make you feel like you're alone. You can feel isolated. You can feel like maybe there is no hope. Maybe there isn't anything else for me to go on for. But I firmly believe that while we're still here, we're still moving, we're still breathing. There is more, and we just have to believe that our story is still being written. By an amazing author. He knows all. He knows the end from the beginning
Hmm.
and the beginning from the end. And he's going to carry us through the circumstances that we may be facing and make it for our good. So that's how I would describe hope. And, for someone who may be struggling with that right now, I think that there is a time for self reflection. I think it's very important to acknowledge where you are and to feel those feelings, to know that what you're feeling is valid, and to not let anyone make you feel that, oh,
Mhm.
you know, it's time for you to pick up, time for you to move on. We can't put a time frame or a time stamp on anybody's journey. But I think it is important for us as individuals, and particularly as women, because we carry so much, we bear up so much, we have so many different responsibilities. It is very important for us to, one, feel our feelings, acknowledge them. And for me, it sends me immediately into prayer. And prayer is not always, you know, this grand display of, you know, whatever people try to make it out to be. For me, oftentimes it's those silent prayers. And it could very well be those silent tears, you know, that are expressing whatever it is that I'm going through in the moment. And so if you're in a place where you are feeling hopeless,
Mhm.
acknowledge that and just cry out, you know, cry out to God, cry out to those that you know you can trust that are in your circle. Let them know that I am struggling right now. Um, I think it's important for
Mhm.
us to communicate and to speak up and to not hold things in and feel like we have to bear up things and go through things on our own. Someone is waiting to help you walk through whatever it is that you're going through right now, and God will
Mhm.
place them on your path. So acknowledge how you're
Mhm.
feeling, cry out for the help that you need. The help is there, and you know, just determine that while you're still here within the circumstance, you're going to continue to do your best. And your best is your best,
Mhm.
not someone else's best. So, you know, you don't allow other people to impose on you, well, you know, you should do this, or I think you should do this. You will know within yourself, and, you know, just based on the conviction that you have in your heart, what it is that you need to do that's best for you as you continue to walk along this path.
Mhm. Yeah. That is awesome. You said a mouthful of and I really liked when you talked about, when you're feeling a little hopeless
Hmm.
and you need that support, the steps that you would take to find hope. And sometimes we do need help.
Hmm.
Sometimes we can't do it on our own, depending on what we're going through. So the first step would be to acknowledge and be honest with your
Hmm.
feelings and your struggles, and
Yeah.
to not hold that in, to share with someone else who may be able to help you. If you're in a position where there aren't very many people around, that is when you have coaches, you have
Hmm.
therapists, you have pastors and other leaders that maybe in churches that can help you as well. Just someone that can give you some sound advice, and to get a prayer through sometimes when you
Yeah.
can't.
Prayer warriors.
Ultimately, yes, you need to have them on deck.
Yes.
Ultimately, there may be some times where you just need to scream and you need to
Hmm.
cry,
Yeah.
and you need to cry out and ask God to help you. And I know sometimes that can be difficult depending on your relationship with Christ. You may feel, kind of like a black sheep, like maybe you've kind of, not been as close as you should be, but he is always there. He
Absolutely.
is always there, and he loves us regardless.
Yes.
So my faith is super important to me. And that is
Mine
the
too.
only reason that I'm here today, standing or sitting in this case, but that I am still here. And, apparently it is very important to you. And so,
Yes.
we're just sharing what we know to be helpful and what has worked for us.
Right.
So
Right.
thank you for that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And you know, I want to speak to you. You mentioned someone who may be feeling like they're a little far, you know, maybe their
Hmm.
relationship is not necessarily where they wanted to be or where it once was.
Hmm.
The first thing I would say is scripturally, there is no condemnation to those that are in Christ Jesus. He's not out to get you. As Alicia
Mm.
mentioned, he loves you, and he loves you beyond anything that you can even imagine. So um, don't allow those feelings to stop you from reaching out to
Hmm.
grab hold to him.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think that is one thing that the enemy wants to make us aware of or wants to
Mhm.
remind us of is that maybe, some of all the bad things that we've done, or the
Mhm.
fact that we have been a little disconnected from God. He wants to remind us of those to keep us stuck so that we
Right.
don't go to the Father and ask for help. Because if we get help, then what? We're
Right.
better, we're empowered, we can be, all these things. But if we
Mhm.
stay stuck and we stay where the enemy wants us to be and we stay quiet, then we're just continuing to suffer, and we're suffering in silence.
Right.
So open up and don't
Yes,
be
yes.
afraid.
That's very important.
Don't be afraid. Hmm. Okay, so I read somewhere, I think on your website,
Mhm.
that you talked about a loss of hope and how that
Mhm.
ultimately leads to a decrease in faith, and how that causes you to lose sight on some of the lessons that
Mhm.
you're supposed to gain in everyday moments. Can you share more about that and what you mean by that?
Sure. I guess personally, there are many things that come to mind, and where I've been in that position, but more recently, where there were aha moments. I live with chronic disease, and an immunodeficiency, and was diagnosed in 2018, and have navigated that for since that time, and it can be very challenging. And recently I had a friend whose husband was diagnosed with the same
Mhm.
disorder, and so she reached out to me knowing that I have this same condition. And just in terms of the lessons, it's a struggle, but when it comes time for you to then pay it forward, she wanted to know about certain things, and I was able to validate that yes, this is something that he will likely experience, or no, that sounds a little strange, and maybe he needs to reach out to his primary care, or the specialist that he's seeing, and request this and request that. And so that's what I mean, about that's just one example for me personally. When I was diagnosed, it felt like a very hopeless situation,
Mhm.
because at the time my body was going this
Mhm.
way, and I was going in another direction, and it can be very confusing. And that is the place where my
Yeah.
friend's husband is right now, and you're trying to figure it out. But fast forward 4 years later, here I am. I'm still moving, I'm still
Mhm.
thriving. Every day is not always a great day, but I have learned that I can survive. I have learned to put my
Mhm.
trust in Christ. I have learned that He is my healer, even though the manifestation of that is not yet mine. I still walk in that.
Mhm.
And so, if I'm approached by or encountered by someone who may be experiencing something similar, I've learned to be compassionate. I've learned to have empathy.
Mhm.
I have learned to share, what it is that I know. I have learned to say, well, let me offer you this. Do you all need help with this? Can I reach out to someone for you? So that's what I mean about getting stuck when we're facing hopeless
Mhm.
situations. We can't get stuck, because there's a reason why we were placed in these situations. And oftentimes it's
Mhm.
for us to learn and grow and to become. But then there
Yeah.
comes a time where it's no longer for us, it's for us to help somebody else.
Mhm. Exactly. That's the perfect example. And while you're going through it, it never
Hmm.
feels good, and
Right.
you're questioning God and wonder why. Like you said, you were going in one direction and your body was going through another, or
Hmm.
going to another, and it just didn't seem right. And I'm sure
Right.
even now, it's not easy. It's
Hmm.
challenging, but you've gotten to a place where you have accepted it, and now you have said, okay, I'm going to use this to help other people.
Hmm.
I've gotten to a good place with it, and so now I can be a resource.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. That is really, taking that moment, that you're going through something, and just the everyday moment that could have broken you, and
Hmm.
finding the positive in it.
Yeah. And just deciding
So great
just that,
example.
yeah, just deciding that I'm going to live, and
Yeah.
that's what I have to tell myself, and for other people to tell, I'm going to live through this. I'm going to live through this. So
Hmm.
that's just a
Hmm.
constant thing for me.
Yeah. Awesome. So switching gears a little bit,
Hmm.
as we talk about, just being busy women and
Hmm.
being, women of purpose, or just the multifaceted woman. You mentioned all the things that you do. And we may even have, women that are stay-at-home moms,
Right.
but are involved in the community, involved in this and that, involved with their children. And so we get busy with everyday life. And many times we put ourselves on the back burner
Hmm.
and we put others' needs and wants in front of ours. And so, kind of going back to that daily becoming, what is some advice that you would give to women who have just kind of, lost their drive and their ambition? They're not as hopeful for, of achieving the dreams that they had once had because they've just
Hmm.
gotten so caught up in everyday living. What would be your advice to them?
Well, my first piece of advice would be not to beat themselves up for that, to give themselves grace, because
Mm-hmm.
we have to wife, we have to mother, we have to do all those things. Someone, that's what everyday life, I kind of describe it as, if you're an everyday woman, then someone or something is waiting on you on a daily basis to show up in some area. So we have
Mm-hmm.
to show up. But I would say, go back to that place where you felt like you lost that passion, or you felt like you
Mm-hmm.
dropped that dream or dropped that goal. What was going on in that moment in time? And go back and pick it back up, you know, piece by piece, bit by bit,
Mm-hmm.
reestablish who you were in that moment and what it was that was driving you. Um, and understand that it's not going to look the same, because much about us changes,
Mm-hmm.
over time. We pick up
Mm-hmm.
different roles and different responsibilities, and our capacity for certain things, may not be where it was before we, became who we are today,
Mm-hmm.
with the various hats and stuff that we wear. But just believe that you can accomplish those things, first of all. And you mentioned this earlier, a lot of what we go through starts here, and once we get it here in our
Mm-hmm.
head or in our mind that we can't do something or we can accomplish something, we've already counted ourselves out. So I would say to
Mm-hmm.
go back to that place, reestablish that belief that you can accomplish whatever that dream or goal or desire is, and take it one step at a time. Write it out, set some goals, find an accountability partner. Of course, first commit it to prayer, because
Mm-hmm.
it might be a good thing, but it might not necessarily be something that you need to do right now. Maybe doing it on another scale until you can get to the place where you want it to be. But just being realistic, setting realistic expectations for yourself, given all of the things that you have to do. But just don't count yourself out. A lot of people say that we need to
Mm-hmm.
establish our why. I was talking with a group of women about a couple weeks ago on another platform that I was given the opportunity to share, and I said that we need to address our why nots. Why not me? Why not you?
Mm.
Why do
Yeah.
you feel like you can't
Mm-hmm.
accomplish this? Why have you counted yourself out in that area? So, journaling, and at least I know you have journals and different things of that
Mm-hmm.
nature for women, resources, which I would strongly encourage women to tap into. So that would be the advice that I would
Mm-hmm.
give.
Yeah, that's some really great advice. I love the why not me?
Hmm.
Why not? And the only person or people that can answer that question would be yourself and God.
Right.
So, God may be telling you, well, you can, but not right
Hmm.
now.
Yeah.
This is not the right season for you. Or he may be saying, well, you can, but not exactly like that. And so we have
Right.
to be open to pivoting and making changes because, like you said, we may have a dream that we dreamed 10, 20 years ago, but
Right.
in today's time, in today's lifestyle, that may not be realistic for us. And
Right.
so we do have to be open, making some changes and seeing if those things are even still relevant for us, and
Correct.
analyzing how we can make those shifts with our new life. Because there's many things people may have wanted to do: go to school and become a doctor or a lawyer.
Hmm.
And here it is, you're 30 years old and you have a whole family that you have to
Right.
attend to. That may be a little difficult. You may need your family to see if it's even going to be feasible.
Right.
So sometimes we do have to, make some changes. And, there may be something similar that would give you just as much of enjoyment and fulfillment in life.
That's true.
So don't
Reframing.
give up, but make the
Right.
necessary changes and reframe it. Yeah. Awesome.
Yes.
Um, so when we're talking about finding the blessing in those everyday moments,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes life just kind of gets so chaotic, and we're waking up in the morning, maybe logging in for work, or getting the kids off to school, or busy with those meetings throughout the day. Maybe you're an entrepreneur, just the multiple things that how do you keep yourself from becoming overwhelmed with all of those things while still thinking, oh, I know I can do this, for daily becoming. Um, but I still have, all these other things I have to do at the same time. How do you keep
Yeah.
yourself from being overwhelmed?
That's a really good question, because overwhelm is definitely a part of my story on a regular basis.
Uh-huh.
Because I am one that likes to, to be honest, I bite off more than I can chew a lot of times. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, it is having to pull back and to scale back and to acknowledge that, okay, like you said, this is not the time for that. This is not the season for
Mm-hmm.
that. I could do that, but that's not what I need to be doing at this point in time. So it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely realignment with my priorities. First, I'm a wife, I'm a mom. I have to make sure my house is functioning. I have to make sure folks are fed. I have to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the things. I have to make sure that I'm in alignment with the areas that I am called to. And
Mm-hmm.
if I'm not called to those areas, then, you know, sorry, not sorry. No is a
Yeah.
complete sentence. And I think a lot of times when we're feeling overwhelmed, it has more to do with what we're imposing on ourselves versus some outside factor. The things that we're imposing
Mm-hmm.
on ourselves will compound with the things that are coming from the outside. So I think we have to take it easy on
Right.
ourselves. And we could be Superwoman, but sometimes Superwoman has to take her cape off as well. And when those feelings of
Yes.
overwhelm come, it is very important to just stop, take in where that's coming from. What's the source of the overwhelm? Can I eliminate that? Can I scale back? Can I ask for help? Can I
Mm-hmm.
put that on the shelf and revisit it? So for me, those are actually things that I do, on a daily basis. Yeah, I do try to keep a
Mm-hmm.
calendar and a schedule and, communicate and make sure my husband's on board with things that I have going on and things that Madison has going on because, she's got activities now also. I'm sure you understand as a
Mm-hmm.
mom as well. So I think that it's just important to be realistic and not to bite off more than we can chew, but also to be purpose driven. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if it's not in alignment with what I am called to, where my areas of purpose lie, then I cannot, you
Mm-hmm.
know, fully engage in it. I could engage in it, but I would not
Right.
be fully engaged in it.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Very, very good advice. You have to have those moments where you're doing some self anal- analyzing, basically
Mm-hmm.
analyzing of your calendar, analyzing of your priorities, and figuring out, have I bitten off more than I can chew? Is this something that is realistic
Mm-hmm.
for this time frame? What can I push aside? Because we're only one person. There's only so much we can do. We talked about, the different seasons of life as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, like you mentioned, we are not super women, even though we are when sometimes we feel like we are. But we have to
Right.
take that cape off sometimes and just
Exactly.
breathe and, give ourselves those moments, replenish ourselves with self care
Mm-hmm.
as well, so that we can go out and be the best versions that we can be. And so that we don't lose sight on what's important for
Right.
us. Because while we're
Mm-hmm.
out here trying to achieve all these goals and do all these things, there could be someone suffering, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
even a task that is kind of suffering or falling by the wayside. So we
True.
do need those moments to kind of bring ourselves back in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good.
Back to center. Yep.
Hmm. And I think that kind of transitions well with the season that we're living in right now. So
Mm-hmm.
not only is this the holiday season, but it's also a season of life where I feel like, women are expected to do so much,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're an entrepreneur. Why aren't you, doing all of these things? Why aren't you setting up events and, doing podcasts or just, various interviews to
All
get
the
yourself
things.
out
Yes.
there? And then there's, well, I still have to pay bills. I still have to, like you said, eat and feed people. And now, it's the holiday season.
Yeah.
So now you may have expectations, other expectations that weren't there before. Like now you have to make sure that you're getting gifts. If you're, you're celebrating and you're giving gifts, make sure that you're giving people gifts. Do you have enough money saved up to do those things? It's time to get with family members that
Mm-hmm.
maybe you haven't seen in a while. And some may work your last nerve,
Yes.
but you feel like you just have to sit there and bear through,
Grin and
with the
bear it. Yes.
conversations. Yes, because it's tradition.
Right.
Um, and so, what would you say for those that feel like there's even more stress that they are just compounding because it's holiday season, and maybe there are more expectations upon them?
Well, I would tell them to ask themselves this question first. What is it that you want out of this season? Because I think a lot of times as women, like you said, all of those thoughts come rushing in. I got to get the gifts. I got to get the dinner. The house got to be decorated. I got to send the cards out. All those things come rushing in around this time of
Mm-hmm.
year. But who says that? Like
Mm-hmm.
whose
Mm-hmm.
whose rules are those? Whose regulations are those?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are traditions and there are things that we normally do, but it is okay if you stray away from those traditions if they don't align with the space that you are currently in.
Mm-hmm.
I was recently recording a podcast episode that will come out next week with a licensed clinical social worker around boundaries in this time of year and the importance of
Mm-hmm.
setting those boundaries and the importance of setting them with yourself. First and foremost, that I'm not going to allow myself to subscribe to that, or I'm not going to fall into that the trap of I need to be here, there, and everywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to let those around me know, whether they buy in or not, this is what's important for me, for me to maintain some sense of wholeness and wellness physically and mentally. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's
Mm-hmm.
important for us to determine, you know, do I want to do this year? Is this how I want to conduct
Yeah.
business on my end? Because at the end of the day, the new year is going to come in and you don't want to go into
Mm-hmm.
the new year broke physically or
Mm-hmm.
financially. You
Mm-hmm.
want to go into the new year with soundness of mind and with a positive outlook. And you can't do that draining yourself from December 1 to December 31st. So I think it's
Mm-hmm.
very important for us to determine, what our optimal outcome will be. If this happens and this
Mm-hmm.
happens and this happens, this will be great for me. This will be fine for me.
Mm-hmm.
This will make the holiday season wonderful for me, and stick with that. Make yourself a plan, get people on board that you need to get on board. If it doesn't work out, go back to the drawing board, but just stick
Mm-hmm.
with what it is that you made up in your mind would make for a non-stressful holiday season.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very good. And I know in my family, we've had to do that
Mhm.
before as well. And just, finding the time to say and the courage to say sometimes that, oh, I'm not going to be able to make it.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah,
not going to be able to do, the things that we've done for many
for
years. I know it's
years.
tradition,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I just can't, or I just don't feel like it this year. I
Right.
don't want to be running ragged.
Mhm.
And so that I think is one thing that COVID taught us is
True.
that, it's okay if we don't all gather together in
Mhm.
this type of um, example, or, the way that we've done it in the past. We can get creative and do some different things,
Right.
because ultimately, outside of all of the gatherings and the food and the gifts and all of that, ultimately, if we're focusing on our blessings,
Mm-hmm.
it's really about, having your health, being still alive and having your friends and family around, and just thinking about all the things that you do have and showing appreciation of that as well.
Yeah.
It's not all about all of these different traditions that sometimes can stress us out.
Right. I agree. And
Hmm.
just to remind
Hmm.
myself, I had to remind myself, Jesus is the reason for the season.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
that's a constant reminder for me.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even as adults, we
Yes.
have
Yes.
to remind ourselves of that because, I find myself telling my son and, my nieces and all of them as well that, you can give me your list, you can
Uh-huh.
give me your expectation, but ultimately, you know what? This is Jesus's birthday. This is a
Right.
celebration for him. And so, although we know, it's not exactly his birthday, but it's a celebration
Right.
for him. And
Exactly.
we are to be grateful and thankful for the things that we have. It's not always about gifts. And I'm not going to be stressed out. And
No,
so, sharing those lessons and sharing that perspective with our children is very important. They need to
it
start
really
learning
is.
those
They need to know
lessons
from the very
now
beginning.
about
Mm-hmm.
how to have that hope, because, one day they're going to be on their own, and Christmas and Thanksgiving may not look the way that it did when they were with daddy and all,
Right.
mama. It's going to be like, are they going to get depressed and down because it doesn't look the same, or they're going to
Yeah.
find hope and be able to do what works for them?
Move on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's
Mm-hmm.
true. That
Yes.
is very true.
Yeah. Yeah. um and so lastly, I would just like to know, scripture wise, are there any
Mm-hmm.
scriptures that help to encourage you to find hope and just kind of focus on the blessings, during times when you're maybe not feeling so hopeful?
Yeah. Four come to mind. Um, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans that I have for you, saith the Lord. Plans to give you hope and an expected end, a future. So that's one. Let's see. Isaiah 40:31.
Hmm.
Those that wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They'll mount up with wings as eagles. They'll walk and not faint. They'll run and not grow weary. Um, uh, let's see. Philippians 1:6, which says, he that hath begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ returns. That's probably one of my favorite, just because it lets me know that God is always working. He's always working, and he's working on me, and the work that he's
Hmm.
doing is ongoing. So that's very encouraging to me. And I think the last one would probably be Romans 12:12. So I think that says, I don't want to misquote the scripture, be joyful in
Hmm.
hope, patient in tribulation, and faithful in prayer. So those are
Hmm.
probably the four that definitely strengthen me and help me to
Hmm.
maintain hope.
Yes, I love all of those. And I will go back and make sure that I put those in the comment, especially on Facebook, so
Yeah.
people can look those up. Because those are great. Those are really great. And, sometimes we just need those reminders.
Hmm.
We want to be practical, and give people good advice, but we want to provide them with a spiritual aspect as well. Because honestly, for me, that refills my spirit and keeps me going on.
Me
And
too.
sometimes I just have to look at it and say, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that it said it right there. And that's how I'm feeling
Hmm.
right now. And that's what I'm going to do.
Exactly. Exactly.
So thank you for sharing those.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for
um,
asking. Thank you.
mhm, yes. Anything else that you want to share? Any other advice about
Um,
finding hope, or even anything that you have going on here coming up?
Well, I guess I just want to say that, one, Alicia, I appreciate this opportunity, and it was great talking to you. You bring out
Hmm.
so much in your guest, and really caused me to think, and I wanted to make sure I was answering the questions accordingly. But I guess I just want to say, ladies, I'm grateful for platforms such as Alicia's, because in keeping with the pandemic and the things that it opened up, it allowed us to really simplify and to find spaces where we're being encouraged and poured into. There's so many negative things that go on that cause us
Mhm.
to doubt ourselves and want to compare ourselves, and imposter syndrome and all that other stuff. And so, Alicia, I
Mhm.
definitely appreciate what you're doing here and your platform, and just keep going, keep going.
Thank
As
you.
far as what I have going on, I have some new podcast episodes that are coming out. I've kind of slowed down on that because um, trying to nourish this boutique end of the business. If you're in the Raleigh Durham area, I'll be popping up in various places. This Saturday in particular, there is a holiday, like a mini holiday market. So come on out to that.
Mm.
It's Boss Lady Holiday Soiree at the Hyatt House in Raleigh in the Briar Creek area from 5 to 7 o'clock. Myself and other vendors will be there, and just want you to come and relax, have a good time, and even network. But you can always follow me on Instagram. Try to stay active on Facebook, and would love to have you join the Daily Becoming community. I send out something weekly, almost most Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I try to keep that regular schedule going, so it could be
Mhm.
something inspirational. It could be a podcast episode, or it can be something that's going on in the shop, because sales and different discounts and so forth filter through that first. So that's pretty much what's going on with me over the next few weeks as we enter into the new year.
Mhm. Okay, awesome. So I've got Daily Becoming on Instagram and Facebook. And is that the Daily Becoming podcast
Well, actually, on Instagram, it's I am Miss
as
Boyd.
well?
So it could be a little confusing. All of the Daily Becoming content kind of
Okay.
filters through my personal page. The website is where everything is
Okay.
located. So if you're wanting to, connect that way, www.dailybecoming.org, and everything's there, the blog, the podcast, all of that. And you can also subscribe there. As far as Instagram goes, I try to pop in with just inspo or kind of lifestyle stuff, and more active in the stories lately. And Facebook, of course, is more
Okay.
so where Facebook, everything is attached to from Instagram. So if you're looking at it on Instagram, you're going to see it on Facebook too. On Facebook, it is Danielle Boyd.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I think it was just the content and your listening and the way that you presented it made it just so impactful and meaningful. And we were just casually talking, but, I felt like I really got a lot out of it as well. We had a couple compliments from Ramona at Girlfriends Talking Podcast. She's always a great support as well, just kind of giving us feedback on the interview. And
That's great.
so I love connecting with other like minded women. I am so glad that we met. And you guys, please check her out. Please follow her on Facebook and Instagram, and check out all the things that she has coming in the future. So with that, we are going to sign out for the evening. So everybody have a great night.
Thanks,
And
Alicia.
Danielle, if
Have
you
a
have